Hey guys, so for this video I'm just doing a little bit of a breakdown. So as most of us know, we're in this community with Noli. So we've seen a lot of his challenge runs where he's done, I'd say, and all the ones where one of his rules has been getting to Deathwish at level 80. So for a project I'm working on has to do with achievements, I decided to figure out where exactly would be the earliest point that you could actually reach Deathwish difficulty or level 80 before, like at the earliest point, in my case, to get the most achievements, or where it would actually be the most theoretically possible for you to get to that point. So keep in mind, this is obviously at base. You don't have any infamy bonuses, you don't have anything like that. All you have is sort of the base stuff revolving around the heist. This also assumes you have all the DLC, the main one being the gauge packages, because that also gives an experience boost. So for the route that I've been building, it follows the career mode. So you start with car shop in this case because you want to get up into the levels as quickly as possible. This is the only deviation, because if you know the career mode, you know you can either do the loud tutorial or you can get to level 10. So I've decided to do car shop mainly because it doesn't impact on the achievements, but that's my project that I'm working on. So apart from that, everything else is in the correct procedure until we get to the Deathwish difficulty. So pretty much, as you can see, you start at all the heists are in the left-hand column. This one here. We've got the max base XP, difficulty multipliers, gauge, blending in, stealth bonuses, blah, 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 blah. I'll explain a little bit more as we go through. Firstly, the first thing you might notice is in the column, they're all in different colors. Basically what this means is for blue, it's a stealth heist, as in you take the stealth approach, you don't do loud objectives. Green is loud, and orange is a mix. Basically, you're going to be doing both. So I've tried to get as accurate as possible max base experience values for all the heists, using information from the Payday wiki, from the work that Beecroft did on his video on the max experience, and I had to do my own calculations. So let's start with Car Shop Mayhem. So you start the max base XP, and it's also a stealth heist, and the objectives are always exactly the same. There's no variation here, so it doesn't really matter. So this is a good example. So Car Shop, you have 10,000 max base XP. That's how much you earn, like, from the heist itself. Then you add in the multipliers. So if everyone, I'm assuming most of you know that for every difficulty you have a different multiplier. So in the case of Mayhem, it's 11.5. So I've done there's a little formulae. If you've used Excel or Sheets, you should know how formulae work. So basically this means for B3, it takes this cell, which is the cell next to it, and then applies, in this case, 11.5, which is the difficulty multiplier for Mayhem. So for Deathwish, it's 13, and then Death Sentence is 14. So further down the list, that's when that starts applying. So what happens is the difficulty multiplier is applied first. So this is sort of now your new base for whatever heist you complete. So for pretty much all of these, it is whatever the base experience is times 11.5. Next, we go on to gauge packages. So the way that these ones work is they're additive. So this works by basically taking the difficulty multiplier, whatever the difficulty multiplier number is, and then multiplying that by 5%, which is 0.05, as you can see. So then adding that onwards. So for this case, it takes 115,000 plus whatever 5% of that is, which gets you 120,750. Now you may have noticed that this one is in red, and that this cell equals the gauge package one. This is because at this point you also don't have any experience. You haven't got any perk points, so you can't take advantage of blending in, because blending in is the 4th card in every perk deck. So you would need to unlock blending in first before you can start taking advantage of the 45% bonus XP that blending in gives you. So for the first 4 heists, this does not apply because you don't have enough experience to unlock blending in. So if you can see over here, perk points are also calculated a certain way. So these are all pretty much exactly the same. There is a bit of stealth bonuses involved as well. So for example, let's take well, continue going car shop. So blending in doesn't make any difference. It's also your first heist, so you got no stealth bonuses. So your XP, your total XP at the moment is 120,750. That is the total experience you get from car shop. So that also takes you up to level 25. If you want to see the breakdown of that, you can find it on the Payday wiki on the reputation page. That shows you how much experience you need to get to each level. I've basically just written down exactly where you get to those points. So perk points, the way that they're worked is they take whatever experience you gain. If you go to your perk decks, the perk deck page, you get a certain amount of your experience is transferred into perk points. So the way that formula works is that your level is taken, like whatever level you happen to be at when you visit that page. So in this case, you'd be going into level 25, is rounded up to the highest 10. So like 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. So at 25, your next value is 30. Your highest level is 30. So you then take that level, times it by 10, which gives you 300. So then you apply that 300 and divide whatever your experience is by that number. So as you can see, that's taken this one here, the 120,750, and it's divided it by 300, which gets you 402.5 perk points. So if you went to get blending in as early as possible, you would have to be visiting the perk deck page every single heist. Because obviously after you finish Jewelry Store, you go to level 32, which then takes it to divide by 400, which means you get less and less returns the further into your infamy you go. So you want to be doing it as regularly as possible, and the earliest you get the required 1500 perk points to unlock blending in is at the end of Go Bank. So after Go Bank, Diamond Store onwards, you can also take advantage of blending in, which gives you more experience. The other big one was stealth bonuses. So each, as people know, if you complete stealth, if you complete heists in stealth, your subsequent heist gets a multiplier added as well. So the way that works is, again, you just take whatever is in the blending in column, and then you add whatever the percentage. Same formula for finding out from blending in, from gauge package to blending in. So this one works, so it's taking this form, this cell, plus that cell again, times by 10%, because you get a 10% stealth multiplier from completing car shop. So your new total is 106,260. So at this point, your total XP should be 227,010. So if we continue on, this also works all the way along. So Jewelry Store, because it's orange, you finish it in loud, so there's no stealth multiplier that is added to Bank Heist Cash. So this one is just another flat increase of 144,900. So this keeps going on. So Bank Heist now flows on to Go Bank flows on to Diamond Store flows on to Transport Downtown. So as you can see, you've added so gauge multiple. So at this point now, gauge packages now only take on the extra bit. So these ones now only look at whatever the 0.05 of this is, because now that blending in has taken into account, I've just changed the formula slightly where it takes both of them and then times it by 0.45. So that's how that works now from Diamond Store onwards, which is why that these cells have gone down a lot, because otherwise you'd be adding a lot more extra experience which you don't actually get. So Diamond Store continues on. You get a stealth bonus as well from this one, so now you're at 1,043,625 at the end of Diamond Store, which takes you up to level 49. So already 5 heists in, you're almost at level 50 already, but we know this already because most leveling process is very top heavy in Payday 2, so this isn't too much of a problem. Further down, it's all pretty much the same. Now escapes, you might have noticed already, are all 0. This is one because in an actual gameplay, the escapes are not guaranteed to happen, and I also couldn't find any information about what XP they provide. So for the sake of this spreadsheet, I have decided to say they give you nothing. May not be the most accurate, however, that's how I've decided to run it, just to try and take that out of the equation. So next we've got Transport Train, that's no problem. 4 stores is blank because I haven't decided whether It can be run in stealth. It can be run in loud. But either or, it actually really, I did look further down. It doesn't make a big difference on where the actual breakpoint is. So, next up, you might notice White Xmas gives a huge 64,000 experience. So I will explain why that's so high, because that is not the actual base experience that you get, or like the max base. This is because for one of the achievements for White Xmas, you have to open 40 packages. So within that, I decided to, because there's a certain percentage chance of you getting loot from those boxes, so like baggable loot, like the white powder. So I've decided that that white powder has a 70% chance of showing up in every box that you open. So I just took 40 boxes, times it by 70%, which is 28. So you get X amount of experience from securing all those loots. So I've just added that to the total. Because you might as well. I mean, there's no point just opening the boxes and then just leaving the baggable loot. So that's all the big ones. So you get a huge boost of experience from White Xmas, which takes you from level 58 to 64. But there really isn't many surprises. Like, these are all pretty much the same. So you may have noticed already, it's popped up down the bottom at this point, because Firestarter also gives you a huge stealth multiplier, because for the sake of my run, you're doing day 2 and day 3 stealth. So that gives you a huge 20% experience multiplier for stealth. So as we saw in a challenge run, in the challenge runs before, the earliest that Noli has ever been able to get to Deathwish difficulty, or level 80, was at Hoxton Breakout. That was in one of his more recent challenge runs, out of the ones that he's done. So Hoxton Breakout was the earliest that he reached. Well, he reached it after Hotline Miami. But I've figured out that if you did everything as optimally as possible, that is to say, you did everything at Mayhem, you did all these properly, you didn't miss any objectives, you did all these in this particular way, plus collecting every single gauge package on the map, by the end of Rats, you would reach the breakpoint to reach Deathwish. That is probably the earliest you can ever reach Deathwish difficulty on a fresh account. I don't think you can get much earlier than that. Any earlier than that, it may be at the end of Firestarter, or you might be getting it midway through Firestarter, but you can't change difficulties midway through heists. So these are all obviously these level at the end, like you've completed the heist like fully. So Firestarter, maybe potentially, but I don't think you can get any earlier than that. At that point, you don't have near enough experience to reach level 80. Whereas Rats, the Old Faithful, everyone knows that Rats gives a huge amount of experience, even just because of the base, and then you're multiplying everything, and you're carrying in a 20% stealth multiplier as well, so it really takes you over the edge. So out of curiosity, you probably noticed, obviously, oh, hang on, why have now all these columns switched into 2? Well, because a part of my challenge run, obviously to get the most achievements, you would have to work on assuming that as soon as you reach Deathwish Death Sentence, because I am operating under the impression that Death Sentence also becomes available when you reach level 80. I haven't been able to verify it, but I am assuming that is the case. Is that you can do everything from Deathwish or Death Sentence from this point on. So I've taken both of those into account. So the base XP doesn't change. Those are still exactly the same because it's the bases. So now, from this point onwards, you would be operating at Deathwish difficulty. So for this now, it's changed from 11.5 for the multiplier to 13 because you're now playing on Deathwish for all these subsequent heists. However, if you decide to do it on Death Sentence, it's got 14 times, sorry. So there is now a bit of a change in experience. So that hasn't changed much, but then obviously the same formula is applied. They're just looking at different columns. So the Death Sentence column looks at whatever's the Death Sentence column for difficulty, and the Mayhem Deathwish one looks at the Mayhem Deathwish one. That hasn't changed. These ones haven't changed. Same goes for blending in. These look at the figures from the gauge packet, like the formula from before. It also looks at it just looks at all the information from the previous columns before calculating what it would be. This also, whatever stealth
bonuses might be possible. So big oil, you're taking 1 into framing frame, which gives you a 15% multiplier. Framing frame gives you a 25%, but as you can see, it's election day, it actually doesn't give you that much experience, especially if you're doing the normal day 1 and day 2. And the base experience for that is because you're doing day 1 very quickly, and day 2 actually doesn't give you that much experience. You mainly do election day for the big 20%, the big 20% stealth bonus that it gives you. So these are all pretty much exactly the same, but then we come to the XP build columns. So from this point on, one of the kings I made for my challenge is that this column is now assuming that you did everything up to big oil on Mayhem, but then obviously you move up to Deathwish, but this also takes into account if you are doing all stealth, like fully stealth heists, like big oil, framing frame, election day, Hawk's Revenge time, blah 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 blah, anything in blue, you're doing those on death sentence stealth to get advantage of the 14% multiplier. So now, what this column, well, for this first instance, it basically takes the sum of all of this, but also adding for the death sentence total here. So that's for that one. And then further down, it just looks at whatever's above it and then adds the relevant figure. So for these ones, they're all taking the death sentence ones because you complete them on death sentence. But then, for example, for Big Bank, you're doing it loud. You're assuming you're doing that loud on Deathwish. So it takes the previous value, but also looks in the Mayhem Deathwish column. So that's how that one works. Death sentence one down. This column is assuming that everything past from Big Oil onwards is done, like everything is done on death sentence one down. So this column was quite easy. This just looks at the sum of everything up to Big Oil, but then it adds the sum of whatever is in the death sentence column on the stealth bonuses. So for example, all the way down to say, let's say Bomb Dockyard. As you can see, there's the outline. It goes all the way down to here before adding this sum of whatever's in this column. So that's how that works. Level also does the same thing. So Mayhem, Deathwish, Death Sentence, Stealth. This column, if the columns are merged, that basically means they're both on the same level of experience. So that hasn't changed. But if it does deviate, as you can see here at Hoxton Breakout, if you did everything on Death Sentence 1 down, you would be at level 91 by the end of Hoxton Breakout. Whereas if you did everything on in the hybrid Mayhem, Deathwish, Death Sentence, Stealth, you would only be at level 90. This doesn't apply for very long because, as you can see further down the list, obviously we do the same things. Counterfeit is another, it goes stealth loud. You don't get a stealth multiplier from it. So you get all the way to the end of Santa's Workshop would get you to level 100 for both. So the three previous ones, First World Bank, Mercury Station, Boiling Point, is more variation. The hybrid one is always one level behind the death sentence one, but it really doesn't matter because at the end of Santa's Workshop, you are going to be level 100. You are going to be able to infamy if you so wished, but if you continued through the career, neither of them will get you to that point to take another infamy. So as you can see, Santa's Workshop also is a huge amount of experience. Main reason being is the Euro Bag Simulator achievement that you do for Santa's Workshop, where you have to secure 100 bags. So you get, what is it? So you get, I can't remember exactly, but it's basically for securing 100 bags, you get 200,000 experience. So you get 100,000 total for making it all, and then 100,000 more for securing it all, because you get 1,000 for each bag individually. So that's why this one is so large compared to everything else, because you're spending a huge amount of time on this heist. To make 100 bags, like obviously if you've got 4 elves, they need to make 25 packages each. That's a lot of time in Santa's Workshop, and that's why this one is so huge, and it makes the big difference to get you all the way up to level 100. So that's basically how this works. Continues all the way down to the White House. So here's the final figures. So at this point, these values here, as you can see, it takes whatever's above them. So this takes this one minus 23,333,000
336,413, because that value there is the total amount of experience you would need to collect to reach level 100. So basically it's just taking whatever the difference is. So this gets to 15 million, blah, 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 which on estimate is around 2/3 of the way through your second infamy if you just did this. Whereas if you did everything death sentence, you'd be about 72% of the way through your second infamy if you did just this. So that's pretty much it. Obviously I just thought at first I was going to just stop at once I found out where the breakpoint was for Deathwish death sentence. But it seems that rats is the breakpoint. Once you complete rats, you have access to Deathwish death sentence. Obviously the other one is like the escapes, crime spree also doesn't affect your experience gain. This may, because at this point you already passed the difficulty, you may in that case be able to get to your infamy a level higher, like up at the end of boiling point rather than the end of Santa's workshop, but that's still a huge amount. It's like another million you'd have to get somewhere just from crime spree, and I don't think you'd be able to do that. Well, you may be able to, I guess. It's possible if you got 2 really good rolls, but obviously crime spree doesn't give you that much experience because you'd be playing pretty much all of them on overkill rather than on Deathwish or death sentence, so may not give you as much. And also crime spree is because I don't know what heist you'd pick for crime spree. Hopefully if it was for my challenge you would do ones that you've already completed. So yeah, just a quick little breakdown of how this works. This is just a little insight into what I've been working on for my challenge. So you may notice down the bottom, heists, other achievements, and route. This is other stuff related to the challenge, and hopefully I will have more information for you later on. Hope you enjoyed this little it's a few numbers, but it is a little bit interesting, at least I think.